Okay.
We stay fighting that fight. No fear, no doubt. Stand tall. You know, Amalek came without fear of a sham. Striking the weak again and again. No mercy shown, heart so cold. Denying the truth our fathers told. But we remember, we never forget. The battle ain't over, not finished yet. It's more than swords, more than shields. A fight for truth, we won't ever yield. We fight a melee, we fight their lies. They try to cool what never dies. The fear of a sham, they try to erase. But we stand strong, holding our place. It's not just a nation, it's a way. The fights are Torah every day. But with this truth, we'll stand tall until Hashem defeats them all. Amalek lives in doubt and scorn, and hearts that mock what Torah sworn. Ain't just enemies from the outside, but they lurk within, they trying to hide. Rejecting Yerushalayim's name, spreading doubt, playing that game. But we rise up with Torah's might, fighting the dark, bringing the light. We fight them out, we fight their lies. They try to cool what never dies. The fear of a sham, they try to erase. But we stand strong, holding our place. It's not just a nation, it's a way. The fights are Torah every day. But with this truth, we'll stand tall until Hashem defeats them all. In every soul that doubts and turns, Amalek's fire, yeah, it burns. But we fight, we stand, no retreat. With Yirat Hashem, we bring the heat. It's a war beyond flesh and blood. We flood the world with Torah's flood. Hashem gonna conquer, Hashem gonna win. Amalek's power getting real thin. We fight Amalek, we fight their lies. They try to cool what never dies. The fear of Hashem, they try to erase. But we stand strong, holding our place. It's not just a nation, it's a way. The fights are Torah every day. But with this truth, we'll stand tall until Hashem defeats them all. Remember now, remember well. Amalek's name, we break that spell. The fight is ours, the truth we hold. Till Hashem's story fully told. With every mitzvah, every prayer, we drive Amalek out the air. Yeah, stand tall, truth always wins.
Hashem Hashem Naaseh v'Natzliach, Shiur Torah, Bruchim Habayim. We're back here on our Tuesday night, War of Amalek, and you just heard a segment of our new song, War of Amalek, the fight with Amalek, in our Tshuva Music channel. Anyone that wants to listen to it again can go to the Tshuva Music channel we have on YouTube or Spotify or Apple and so on and so forth. Tonight's shiur is going to be for the Refuah Shlema, for Rabbi Ephraim ben Shulamit, Rabbanit Sarah bat Anat, Rabbanit Levana bat Sarah, Sarah bat Levana, Ruth bat Sarah, Liora bat Liel, Avimori David ben Nesriya, Imi Morati Doris bat Jora, and all of Am Yisrael and all the righteous Noahides that continue to support and donate and help us with all the amazing things that Baruch Hashem, the organization, is doing. For anyone who hasn't ordered a bunch of Asher Yatzar posters to put into your Jewish community, certainly you could still. There's still a lot of them left, but even though we're getting literally dozens and dozens of orders, Baruch Hashem, we have a big shipment. And you could also get some books, USBs. You can go to the kiruvstore.org and get yourself some of them. And I know that some of you liked the little promotion that we did last week for people that want to get some free books for Rav Nisim Yagen's books. So one of the things that I thought about that's going to motivate you not only to learn Torah, but also to do kiruv at the same time, is that for every 10 boxes of these Asher Yatzar posters that you send us a picture that you put in your community, which obviously means you have to order. You send me 10 pictures, 10 different Jewish spots that have it, whether it's a yeshiva or it's a Jewish market or it's a kollel or Judaica store, wherever it is that it's displayed. You send me the 10 pictures. we'll send you one of Rav Nisim Yagen's books for free. That obviously still goes along with the other thing that we mentioned, where if you get us 10 of your friends, family members, colleagues to sign up to the AI Rabbi app that is certainly changing some lives with giving people legitimate answers at all times of the night and day, and answers that they could actually rely on. So that still stands, but again, the perhaps the doing some kiruv and giving out some Mashay Yatzar boxes may be easier for you, and that's also another way for you to get some free books. So with that being said, Rabotai Karim, we're going to get into it. The lecture itself, in essence, it's called The Most Costly Peace Agreement in Jewish History. Now, of course, I know that many people, immediately, the first thing that comes up to their mind is what just happened with the negotiations between the Israeli government and, of course, their supervisor, America, and the terrorists in Gaza to release the hostages. And there's a lot of opinions out there in the air. Some are saying, how can you release so many terrorists to free the Jews? On the other hand, other people are saying, thank God that our Jews are back, even though the terrorists are back on the street, especially those that have blood in their hands. And others are saying, why didn't you already do this a year ago? Why didn't you do this 2 years ago? Why didn't you do this in the past? Why'd you wait so long? Because the deal actually got worse recently, based on the knowledge we had on what the previous negotiations said. So why didn't you do this before? Now again, all of these questions are out there. Of course, there are some opinions out there. Some people are saying that they shouldn't have done the deal. There's just simply too much blood on the terrorists' hands. That certainly could happen again, just like unfortunately it happened in the past. Why release? Yes, you're saving some Jews now, but you're endangering many others, and you're endangering, in essence, another October 7th happening, since you're giving them the soldiers to do the same thing again. Now, of course, that Torah is what Rav, not that I have to conclude it is, that's what it is. Rabbi Yitzchak Yosef, that was very, very much involved in the whole thing, following the footsteps of the Gaon Ador, Rav Ovadia Yosef, which was that it is the right thing to do, to release the terrorists, because as far as halacha is concerned, saving a life is important to the extent where you have to do a lot of things for it. But what about when there's a danger? Now, the danger that we have from these 1,000 terrorists is not a certain danger. It's a safek danger. It's a possible. They may kill again. They may not kill. They may terrorize again. They may not terrorize. But the danger of the hostages, while they're still hostages, before they were freed, is indeed something that's a certainty. So because there is a certainty of a possible death of our own people versus a possibility of a death in the future, you paskin dat Torah that you to do whatever you can to release the hostages. Now again, whether they shouldn't have done this in the past or not, that's a moot point. This is what we have. Be'ezrat Hashem, all of the people will do tshuva, and Be'ezrat Hashem, all of the other hostages will be released soon. But this is not really the subject at hand that Rav Wasserman is telling us. In fact, Rav Wasserman is going to give us some extraordinary information that may very much shock you, may very much upset some of you, surprise some of you, but it's really talking about the historical deals, agreements that are in Jewish history, and how they went. Now, the Torah is not really surprised at what happened just now with the Israeli government. But Rav Elchanan Wasserman is going to teach us about what peace is it actually achieved when the leaders do not follow that Torah. And in fact, if peace is even possible, at least among the Jewish people, between each other. This shiur is, like I said, going to surprise and shock some of you, especially when we go on a little historical journey that is unfortunately not taught in schools anymore. and therefore the information is mostly known by scholars and descendants of the victims. The shiur is going to be a must-watch for anyone who wants to know what Da'at Torah is about Jewish unity, Jewish peace, and those that say otherwise. And it also, Be'ezrat Hashem, include a story from behind the scenes of the Bet Din, a case that came some time ago to our Bet Din in Israel that is also going to act to the shock. Now, Rabbi Elchanan Wasserman has taught us over these past several months about the extraordinary difficulty that we have in fighting Amalek. And while many people are focusing on the Amalek nation that are trying to kill us, he's also emphasizing that the biggest problem we also have in our own backyard, which is Jewish heretics. And when people do not follow Da'at Torah, and they fight in ways that are against the Torah, ways that are not in accordance with the Torah, that's the beginning of the downfall. That's the beginning of the problem. And Rabbi Elchanan Wasserman starts section number 17 and says as follows: וכמה אנחנו רחוקים מלהכיר ולהבין אמיתות דעת תורה. How far are we from actually understanding the value, the truth of Da'at Torah? The Torah is not a book that was written by some people with an editor. These are the words of HaKadosh Baruch Hu. And when we say the Torah, we're not just referring to the written Torah, we're referring to the whole thing, the written Torah and the oral Torah. In fact, what Rav Wasserman is telling us, our actions prove that we are far away, meaning the general public is far away from leading our people in a direction that is beneficial to them. In fact, it is a certainty that people are going to be misled because of the little discipline and commitment that the leadership has for the Torah. Now, he wants to give us an example, but he tells us we have to understand that our actions show that we know the opposite of Da'at Torah. And one of the ways is by simply looking at the Tzirim L'Shilton Ha'ir, who we send out to go and represent the Jewish people to the leadership of the places we live. In those days, whether it be Russia, Poland, Germany, obviously the Middle East, look at how the strategy of picking people that are going to represent the Jewish people to the governments of the Goyim, of the nations, actually show that they're not following that Torah. Today, it's much easier to see somebody that's not following that Torah. Why? Because everybody values their opinion. So much so that when it comes to the actually how Jews should function, how Jews should live, how Jews should operate, how Jews should deal with the nations, with each other, every Joe has an opinion. He tells you, from my experience, this is what Hashem wants. You didn't see my life. I know from my life. I'm telling you, you have to trust me. I have very important opinions. I have a lot of knowledge. This is what Hashem wants. All right, I hear you. But what do you do? You have a strong opinion. You have a lot of experience. Okay, so what do you do every day? Oh, I'm a truck driver. Huh? Oh, I have a restaurant. Huh? Oh, yeah, I work for the post office. I'm a computer developer. Wait, hold on a second. you have all these different professions that people have. Where does the Torah come in? You say you're telling us that this is what Hashem wants. How would you know what Hashem wants if you spend most of your day in a restaurant? How would you know what Hashem wants if you're an expert in software development? How would you even dare to think that you know what Hashem wants if, more or less, your connection to the Torah, at best, is by watching a shiur Torah and reading a book occasionally? Why would you think that this gives you da'at Torah? Worse yet is sometimes when you find people that actually learn in yeshiva or even still, and they think they have da'at Torah just because they learn Torah. To acquire da'at Torah, Rabotai Kareem, is not just because you're religious and not just because you read some books. A person that wants to have da'at Torah has to toil in the Torah for decades, know exactly not just what the halacha is of day-to-day life, but how to paskin halacha, how the halacha works. In so many words, this is not something that is given to just anybody that knows how to read. Now, this is most pertinent when it comes to the argument of Jewish unity. Because Jewish unity is one of the biggest lies that has caused our nation endless suffering when it violated da'at Torah. And that's in essence what Rav Wasserman is telling us now as the example, where he says that these tzirim, these representatives that are going to the leadership of the country or the city to represent the Jewish people, they are representing everyone. So they got everyone together. They got the Orthodox Jew, they got the Reformed Jew, the atheist Jew, the heretic Jew. They got everybody together. Yeah, I'm going to represent all of you. He says, this in itself shows we know nothing about da'at Torah as far as how we're representing ourselves. Because this representative is going to the leadership, is going to the nation, representing a united Jewish people in order to go and debate against the Nochrim, against the Goyim. The problem is not the Goyim. The Goyim are not the problem at all. What's the problem? The problem, says Rav Elchanan Wasserman, who are these Jews that we are partners with? These Jews that we're partnering with are the Mityavnim. They're not Jews. They're the reformers. They're the Greeks. They're the Jews that have assimilated. So how could they be representing our interest? If we're Orthodox Jews, we follow the Torah, we follow our forefathers, and they do everything in their power to go against our forefathers, and to go against God, to go against this Torah, how could they possibly be representing a united interest? There's nearly zero resemblance between the assimilated Jew and the Orthodox Jew. Because the assimilated Jew, the mityaven, the one that is acting like a goy, like he's part of the nations, but yet he's capitalizing on the fact that his mother is Jewish by getting a few dollars, getting a little bit of kavod and honor from the rest of the Jews that are not following da'at Torah because they sent him. This assimilated Jew spends all of their energy to be like the Goyim. And in fact, these assimilated Jews hate the Orthodox Jews. how could these representatives, says Rav Wasserman, ever be good for our purpose? More than even the Gentiles would be, more than even the Goyim would be. Now, of course, before we go back into Rav Wasserman's words, we have to understand what we're dealing with. So you see, when you say Jewish unity today, especially in the Western world, everyone likes to pay attention. Yes, we should love everyone. We should accept everyone, no matter what their beliefs are. If they're Jewish, then we accept them, even if their beliefs are antithetical to our Torah, even if their practices are trying to destroy our Torah, let's accept them, let's welcome them. This commitment to Jewish unity has been the most disastrous part of our suffering in the exile. And that's not an understatement. Because when Jewish unity is a lie, because it's uniting the real Jews that are committed to the Torah with the heretic Jews, then that Jewish unity is actually forbidden. Because those that are committed to Hashem, uniting themselves with Jewish heretics to go fight against the Goyim, is not only a problem, but the reality is that the Jewish heretics are the problem. And in fact, they're the ones that the real Jews are supposed to fight against. They're the ones that have to get thrown out, get put aside, get dealt with in whatever way possible just to stay away from us. The last thing we ever want is them representing us. Because our fight in the exile is more against the heretics, the heretic Jews, the assimilated Jews, the mityavnim, than it is against the Goyim. And that's what a lot of people don't realize. Now, the theory is, when it comes to Jewish unity, is that if we don't unite with everyone, meaning the Orthodox Jew, the Reformed Jew, the Rainbow Jew, all of these different types of people that call themselves Jews, unite with the real loyal Jews that are committed to the Torah, the theory is, if we don't do it, we won't have enough power in numbers to win any type of political power, any political position. That's the theory. So no matter what, we have to unite. The truth is, if you do unite the real Jews with their brothers that are traitors, that have betrayed God, with the false prophets, our history has shown us that not only you won't have power politically, if you do unite with them, you won't have power, but rather that once you lose Hashem's blessing, the problems that creates is that no power in the world will be enough to stop the heavenly decree that follows such a tragic unity. Because according to our Torah, as well as our history, an assimilated Jew is much more dangerous than any goy out there. Because when Jews fall far away from Hashem, they don't just stop keeping mitzvot. They become the worst part of creation. As our sages teach, when a Jew falls spiritually, they get literally below the dust. And we have examples. In our weekly parasha, Parashat Vayera, we hear about all of these Jewish supervisors. Not just, there was Egyptians, They hated us. They were disgusted by us. There was anti-Semitism. There's Paro. We know that. No, but we also have these leaders that are also under the enslavement of Egypt, but they have much better situation. Why? They are enforced with the task of beating up the Jewish people when they don't produce enough. And whatever Moshe Rabbeinu said to Paro at first, Paro did not listen, and in fact, gave more difficulties to Am Yisrael. And when he came back to them to tell them, don't worry, everything's going to be okay, they didn't even have the time, the ability to listen to him because of what the Torah calls kotzer ruach. As Rav Nisim Yagen, alav shalom, says in this book, Sefer Shmot, his commentary in the parasha, says, Paro operated by the hand of the Satan, the same way that he operates today. If he wants a Jew to go down spiritually, he doesn't have to bring him immodest pictures, immodest videos, immodest people, opportunities to steal. No, he doesn't even have to do that. What does he do? He makes him really, really busy. So busy, he doesn't have time to learn Torah. So busy, he doesn't have time to do mitzvot. So busy that he feels like being religious is just not possible for him. Being connected to Hashem, crying to HaKadosh Baruch Hu, it's not for him. Why? He's too busy. He's too busy making money, chasing money. He's too busy with this, he's too busy with that. Kotzer ruach. He's out of breath. He has no time to breathe. That's what Paro was doing. As he learned from his teacher, the Satan. That's what the Satan is teaching people to do today. To be the reason why you're too busy to learn to watch a Shiur Torah. To be the reason why you can't sit down and open a book. To be the reason why you're not religious. And when a person continues in that path, eventually they can become literally one of these kapos, one of these formerly religious Jews that are really a worse enemy to their own people than even the nations are. We saw this in Egypt, but that wasn't the only time. We saw this countless times throughout history, whether it was the heretics that went to the pagan nations, to Christianity, and their government and reported on their brothers, or it's the kapos in Nazi Germany, Yevsektia in Russia, or Yeshua Nutzri Machshimo, or Nebuchadnezzar, who according to some of the sages was a Jew, descendant of Shlomo HaMelech, whether it was Karl Marx, or Bar Kokhba, Leon Trotsky, or the evil Zionists that say they were representing the Jews while letting go of a deal to save 1 million of them from being destroyed in the Holocaust. Because they didn't want those types of Jews to go to Israel. So they let those Jews die, as was already publicly reported in court cases in Israel and proven, and books have been written about this topic. But the average Jew does not know any of this because they don't learn this in school. They don't learn that the Zionists were actually in partnership with the Nazis under certain conditions. They don't learn that the Zionists were able to save over 1 million Jews but said they don't want to. They don't know that the Zionists were communists. In fact, Rabotai Karim, these assimilated Jews were also behind the whole Christian censure of the Torah. After these heretics decided that they're not only not going to be religious, but they're actually going to cause their brothers and sisters harm by reporting on them to the Gentiles in order to look favorable in the Gentiles' eyes, whether it was during the Spanish Inquisition and the horrible people that would report on their brothers and sisters for learning Torah, for following Judaism, and literally get their brothers and sisters killed as a result of learning Torah. When the Christian leadership found out what it says in the Talmud about their false god Yeshu, what it says about what happened to him and who he was, how they manipulated the words and misunderstood certain things that it says about the nations, as if we hate everyone no matter what, which is not true. There was certainly plenty of good goyim in the world, in the past and in the present. But the heretic Jews went to the Christians, went to the pagans, and told them, look, they're reading these books. They're reading this Talmud. And this Talmud says that your Yoshke, who was a Jew, by the way, he was a bad guy. He's in Gehenom. He's a horrible person. So when the Christian leadership found this out, they burned 12,000 volumes of the Talmud. And in fact, for many years after that, Jewish text was censored, where they forced us to remove parts of the Talmud. We still have the original, but the point is that many people did not have. They had certain segments of Masechet Psachim, of Masechet Gitin, of Masechet Avodah Zarah, different tractates that literally removed entire sections. When a Jewish scholar, one of the tzaddikim, wanted to publish a book, he had to turn it in first to the supervisors of the censure in order to get it approved. You give him 100 pages, you get back 78. Hey, hold on a second. I gave you 100 pages. What happened to 22? Oh, no, that wasn't good. It's not allowed. Why not? No, you said the word goyim. Yeah, but goyim means nations. No, but the goyim think it means something negative. Why do they think it? Because I told them. Because who was the supervisor? Who was the supervisor of the censure? A heretic Jew. The same heretic that reported on his brothers to the goyim was put in power to be the guy that cuts off the Jewish literature, the Jewish scholarship, the Jewish Torah. These Jewish traitors caused us more problems than you can possibly imagine. In fact, even during the censure, and for years, one of the things that really disturbed them was the word goy, because the heretics led the goyim to believe that the word goy is a derogatory word. So what did they do? They told them, listen, anywhere that it says goy, change the word. So the heretic would say, yeah, from now on, any place that says goy, we'll have to change it to akum. Why? Because akum is an acronym for Oved Kochavim V'Mazalot, someone that worships the stars and the fortunes. So it's an idol worshiper. So we don't consider our government of Christians as idol worshippers. So no, it's not referring to them. It's akum. It's akum. It's not a goy. Yeah, but you fool! Don't you realize that the word goy does not even mean a derogatory word? If you look, one of the verses in the Torah accepted by all followers of the Tanakh, the book of Shmuel, in chapter Shmuel 2, chapter 7, verse number 23. Umi ke'amcha ke'Yisrael, goy echad ba'aretz. The prophet says to Hashem, and who is like your people, like Israel, a unique nation on earth, a unique goy. Why? Because the word goy is not derogatory, it's even referring to Am Yisrael. When we say goy, that means nation. It's either the Jewish nation or it's a non-Jewish nation. So when we're saying the Jewish nation, we either say Israel or we say what we just said now in the verse. When we just say the word goyim, then it's referring to non-Jews. Not a derogatory word, it's a biblical word. And there's other places in the Torah that say the same thing. What was Shmuel calling Am Yisrael Gentiles? Idol worshippers? In fact, one of the fools that was in charge of the censure that wanted to replace everywhere that it said Goy to Akum, wanted to make this change even in this verse. Problem is that once you change it in this verse, it doesn't make any sense. Because Shmuel is praising Am Yisrael to Hashem. He's praising his children. One of the greatest things you can do to show somebody that you love them is by praising their children. Needless to say with Hashem, praising his kids. It says, who is like your nation? Israel, a unique nation on earth, whom God went forth to redeem unto himself for a people. But this fool said, no, but it says here, Mi K'amcha Yisrael Goy Echad Ba'aretz. Let's replace Goy with Akum. Wait, so you're praising Am Yisrael, the nation of idol worshippers, to Hashem? How is that a praise exactly? But that's what happens, Rabotai. This type of foolishness is what happens when people do not follow Torah. When people simply think they know more than the Torah. In fact, what Rav Wasserman is now going to tell us is going to take us on a journey in history of when we weren't following B'dat Torah in our decision of who's going to represent the people and put wicked Jews in leadership or allow them to go into leadership or didn't do enough to stop them. And he says as follows. In regards to these mityavnim, these heretic Jews that have assimilated, they do everything in their power to go against us. They hate us. How are these representatives going to be good for us better than the Gentiles are going to be, than the nations? Go and see in the Red Nation, he's referring to Russia, where our brothers, our Jewish brothers, are there. Under the leadership of the Evsexia, who are Jews. Are our brothers that are living in Russia under the leadership of Evsexia doing well? Like they did in the past? We had extraordinary suffering under the emperor, Russian Emperor Nikolai I, Yimach Shemo v'Zichro. Finally, Hashem removed him from the world after 30 years of leadership. But then this whole communist Russia came with even worse. Became even worse for the Jews. It says Rav Wasserman, it's known that there are some Jews that live in different towns that are far away from that red land, far away from those Yevsexia, far away from the communists. And yes, even though they're in poverty, and they have hardship, and they have to suffer anti-Semitism, still they're able to live. Because Yevsexia is not there. But on the other hand, those Jews that are living under the Yevsexia rule, the only thing that comforts them is that they're going to have short lives and die soon and not have to suffer more from Yevsexia. Now, Rabotai, when a person does not know where he came from, he's certainly not going to know if he's going in the right direction or not. One of the most difficult parts of being in the exile for the last couple of thousand years has been what the prophet Isaiah in chapter 49 verse 17 said, your conquerors, your destroyers will come from within you. Meaning, our biggest difficulty of being in the exile, being before Mashiach, our biggest difficulty is other Jews that have abandoned God and have assimilated to be like the nations. And Rav Wasserman is saying that these Jews are not better than the Goyim. In fact, they're worse. If you simply look at what happened in Russia. See, communism itself, the whole idea of communism was started by a Jew named Karl Marx, who was an atheist, a hater of the Torah, and did everything he possibly could to destroy it. Other famous communists that caused literally countless Jewish lives, literally, that at one point even helped Stalin murder Jews, was none other than Leon Trotsky. Leon Trotsky, at one point in his life when he was a little kid, went to yeshiva. And this Leon Trotsky was a major leader in the revolution in Russia. At one point was helping Stalin with his communist idea. He advocated for an international revolution. He was supposed to take leadership after Lenin, but at that point already Stalin decided to murder him and sent a special mission assassin to murder him when he was in Mexico in 1940. Another communist that was a Jew named Lev Borisovich Kamenez. He was a Bolshevik and a chair of the first committee of Soviets. He joined Stalin to fight against Trotsky. Then later on he changed sides. And eventually he got shot and killed in public. Grigory Zinoviev was an extraordinary speaker representing communism, and also one of the people, one of the many millions that Stalin murdered. Bela Kun was a doctrinate Marxist, head of a Hungarian Soviet Republic, was representing and cheering for communism. But the leader of communism, Stalin, murdered her too, along with many others. Rosa Luxemburg defended the Marxist orthodoxy against the revisionism of Edward Bernstein. She even spent some time in jail. Meaning these Jewish heretics that went to communism, which is in essence a fight against God, were willing to die, were willing to be in jail, were willing to suffer for their false beliefs. And in the process, they caused endless damage to their Jewish brothers that were loyal to God. The Communist Party of Israel started in 1920, 28 years before modern day Israel. As a Maki, it forms part of the joint Jewish-Arab Chadash front. And these members of the Communist Party include Tamar Kozansky, Meir Vilner, who actually signed Israel's Declaration of Independence, meaning, Rabotai Karim, modern day Israel is not the same thing as the Israel that HaKadosh Baruch Hu is going to give us once Mashiach comes. Yes, the land is the same. And in fact, what the Torah says is the land is much, much bigger than what we have today. But the leadership of Israel that we have right now is the polar opposite of what leadership is going to be once Mashiach comes. Because the leaders of today, these political leaders, these founders of Zionism, are the enemies of the Torah. Many of them, even today, are communists. Many of them, even today, are against the Torah. Certainly, the founders of Zionism were against the Torah, were communists, were anti-God, were atheists, were Christians, were everything but religious Jews. And even the Declaration of Independence of Israel was signed by communists. The Marxist idealists outside of the USSR felt betrayed by Stalin and ended up signing a pact with Hitler in 1939. Meaning there were some Jews that were in partnership with Hitler. These are not religious Jews. These are communists. These are enemies of the Torah. Now that does not mean that some people that pretended to be religious didn't join Hitler. In fact, as I said in a previous lecture a few years ago, there's evidence that Hitler had over 150,000 Jewish soldiers in his Nazi army. Among them, there was at least a few former Orthodox Jews. Most of them were Reform, communists, and all types of others, but certainly there were some that called themselves Orthodox Jews. Obviously, they were Nazis. They were nothing remotely close to a real Jew that's loyal to Hashem, loyal to his Torah, and loves his brothers and sisters that are Jews. They were fighting for the enemy. They were fighting for Hitler. And for those that thought that perhaps, maybe, communism is the answer, because that's what everyone was saying at the time. Stalin allowed some Jews leadership positions because of their communist beliefs. But as soon as he felt threatened by them, he murdered them without thinking twice. And in fact, he even accused Jewish doctors of plotting to poison one of his people, Andrei Zdanov. Membership of the Marxist Party allowed many individual Jews to attain political power for the first time in centuries, but yet Marxism served to obliterate the cultural and religious basis of several Eastern European Jewish communities. Meaning, yes, they allowed certain people positions of power, just like today, Democrats and Republicans and all types of countries and places allow Jews to go into place in power, but that's not because they're in favor of Judaism. And that's not because those people that are going into political positions are truly following Judaism. They just happen to be Jewish because their mother is Jewish. But they're not following the Torah. And one of the horrible things that this ideology led to was the creation of Yevsektia, a group of Jews, Jewish communists, that hated the Torah so much, they literally hunted rabbis in order to murder them, in order to kill them, without any repercussions. They were the government. You are not allowed to learn Torah. You are not allowed to practice Judaism. They brainwashed the people and caused them suffering no less and perhaps even worse than what happened to them 60, 70 years earlier, 100 years earlier, under Nikolai I, Imach Shimo. The Jews in Russia had to follow communism. That meant abandon God, forbidden to learn any Torah. They'd ask him, you have to follow Mama Russia and Father Stalin. Who's your mama? Russia. Who's your Abba? Stalin. What do you want when you grow up? I want to be an orphan. That's what somebody that connected to Hashem would still want. To be an orphan. No Mama Russia, no Father Stalin. But if they didn't say that, they would literally kill them. They brainwashed them to the point that kids would inform on their own parents when their parents tried to teach them the Shema Yisrael, when their parents tried to teach them Torah. These kids would go to the government, would go to the Yevsektia and tell on their parents, and their parents literally would be arrested and thrown in jail or killed. Why would a kid do that to his parents? Because of the brainwashing, because of the poison the Yevsektia and the rest of those communists fed into society at that point. Everyone was afraid of everyone. And Rav Wasserman is saying, you think that now that we have Jews in power, Jews in politics, that's a good thing? If they're not following the Torah, it's a horrible thing. Why? Because if they're an assimilated Jew in a position of power, they're more dangerous to the Jewish people than even a Gentile anti-Semite. At the time of Nikolai I, this evil emperor, for 30 years, caused endless suffering to the Jewish people. He enforced Jewish kids to become Cantonists at the age of 12. Then, at the age of 18, he would force the Jews to join the military for no less than 25 years, removing them from their houses, from the playground, from the school, from Judaism, and forcing many of them to convert to Christianity. It was forbidden for Jews to learn Torah, to the extent where they were forbidden of even speaking Hebrew or Yiddish, the two common languages of the Jews. Now, as bad as that was, Rabotai, at some point or another, they even forbid the Jews from leaving. Like if a Jew didn't want this, they wanted to go somewhere else, not allowed to leave. Jews were forbidden of living within 50 miles of the border of Prussia and Austria. Meaning, no, you have to suffer, you have to stay here. But with all of that suffering, at some point it ended. And Rav Elchanan Wasserman is telling to those Jews that are unaware of what Da'at Torah is, having Jewish leaders that are assimilated, that are not following the Torah, is even worse than that. Why? Look at Yevsektia. They were much worse than Nikolai. They literally targeted the most religious Jews, the most loyal Jews. Now, even though Rabbi Elchanan Wasserman didn't survive the Holocaust and didn't see the outcome of everything that happened, they already murdered him early on. But everything that he said materialized inside the Holocaust camps, where the same thing that happened in our Torah, where the Jews suffered from the Egyptians, but they also suffered from their fellow Jews that have abandoned Hashem. The kapos, Holocaust survivors, often say that the worst and most violent people that caused the most harm in the concentration camps were the Jewish kapos. They were more vicious than the Nazis. Why? Because they constantly tried to show off to them that they really are a Nazi like them, that they really are they're really like them, they're really a Esav like them. And Rav Wasserman says, while the Jews who live among the Goyim have to suffer anti-Semitism, in those times poverty was very common, still they can live. But the Jews that live among the assimilated Jews that are in leadership are bound to suffer much more. This is why Da'at Torah does not support unity among all Jews. In fact, this that the conquerors and destroyers will come from within us, meaning we are our own worst enemy, is not just a single statement that repeated itself a few times throughout history, but rather it's a part of the very nature of the world that HaKadosh Baruch Hu created. One of the ancient midrashim says a analogy where they came to the metal pole, and they asked the piece of metal, why do you make more noise when we hit you with another piece of metal than you make when we hit you with a piece of wood? I mean, a piece of wood is also solid, and the metal responds and says, when my brother, that's just like me, hits me, it hurts much more. And that's why I scream much louder. The same concept, Rabotai, is when it comes to the heretical Jews, the ones that hate the Torah, the ones that are against the Torah. Rav Wasserman is telling us, when you have this feeling, idea, experience, whatever you want to call it, that there has to be Jewish unity among all Jews, no matter what their beliefs are, no matter what they follow, you're not only not following Da'at Torah, but you're actually causing more harm than good. One of the biggest damages, or in fact, the biggest damage that the Jewish people have suffered in the last 2,000 years was all started by a heretical Jew named Jesus. How much millions and millions of people were murdered in the name of this Jesus? So to say that you have to make peace with even a person like him, if you actually put things in perspective, no normal person would say that. Because the hit from him, and for those that are like him, hurts much worse than even the hit of the nations. Therefore, that when there are Jews that are assimilated and act like goyim, it's much more painful than when a goy simply acts like himself. Because nothing is expected from the goy. Certainly there are some good ones, but even if he's bad, if you expected otherwise, you're a fool. Why? Because the halacha in the Torah says Esav hates Yaakov. Hashem turns on and off Esav's buttons to decide whether he's going to hate the Jew or not, whether he's going to hate the Yaakov or not. So if he hates, we already know, okay, it's not a surprise. But when someone that's a descendant of Yaakov hates another descendant of Yaakov, that's the problem. In communist Russia, the situation was so horrible, they weren't even allowed to complain. In 1948, after the founding of Israel, there was a Russian Jew, professor, who wanted to make Aliyah, wanted to go to Israel. When this was found out, they put him into a mental institution as a crazy person. Why? He said, how could you possibly want to leave the heavenly Russia and go to a Jewish land? Now, obviously, Russia was not heavenly or any good. People were starving, people were hungry, people were poor. You have to constantly wait online for everything because you can't do anything that you want. It was simply a policy. If you see a line, stand. Why? They must be giving out food. And that's what you can eat. Yeah, here, there's Russia. Mother Russia got carrots. Okay, anything else? No, that's what you can eat for the next 2 weeks. Don't complain. It's heavenly. It's good. It's perfect. Sometimes they got something else. You eat that. Sometimes, whether edible, not edible, doesn't make a difference. This is what you have. And you have to wait online. And you weren't allowed to complain. And if you wanted to leave, you must be crazy. There were two brothers that made a pact. One was going to America, and the other one was going to Russia. And they made a pact that to report to each other, but they knew that in Russia, you can't just say what you want. You can't just do what you want. Everything is scrutinized, especially by the Yevsektia. So the brother that was going to Russia said to his brother, he said, listen, I'll send you a letter, but since I can't write whatever the truth, since they monitor every letter, sometimes people didn't get the letter, sometimes they got half a letter, there's all types of things that literally everything was monitored. Everything was monitored. So, if I'm telling you, whatever I'm telling you, in red ink, then you know the situation is dire. Do whatever you can to help me from America. If I write in blue ink, then everything's good. Okay. Some time passed, and the Jew that went to Russia is obviously suffering. There's persecution by the Yevsektia, there's persecution by the Goyim, there's poverty, misery, horrible things. And eventually, he writes a letter to his brother. Just like what Rav Wasserman was saying, that we know of all the horrors that the Jews are suffering in Russia. From any time that someone somehow sends out a letter out of the country, they tell us what's really happening there. Because if you live there, you can't say anything is bad. But in this letter, this brother that's in Russia writes, my dear brother, living in Russia is absolutely heavenly. It's wonderful. We have abundance in everything. Nothing is missing. We have religious freedom. We have plenty of food. Everything is great. There's only one thing that's missing in Russia, and that's a red pen. Love always your brother. This clever Jew, obviously, let his brother know that he cannot tell him the truth even. Why? Because there is some type of communist, anti-Torah Jew that's overseeing him, that is dying to report him to the nations in order to get him killed. This type of pressure and suffering was mostly caused by heretic Jews, Rabotai. Today, the most amount of sufferings that the Jews have is caused by heretic Jews. Now, while certainly we have a problem with the extremists, whether it's Muslims or Christians or whatever they are, that want to kill us or do kill us and attack us and so on, the biggest problems we have, whether it's in America or it's in Israel or anywhere else, you're always going to find a heretic Jew behind it. In Israel, you don't have to even clarify, pretty much the entire government is one heretic after the other. The only thing that is different between one or the other is how much this guy hates the Torah versus the other guy. They literally create rules just to fight against the Torah. They'll promote everything else. They'll promote Christianity. They'll promote Islam. They'll promote atheism. They'll promote donkeys. They'll promote horses. They'll promote Arabs. They'll promote everything. They'll promote except the Torah. Torah is an enemy. And they do everything in their power to fight against the Torah, to cause hardship to the scholars, to cause hardship to religious people, literally horrible things. Now, it's not only in Israel. Here in America, in our own backyard, some of the horrible things that are happening, whether it's in New York or in California and so on, the different laws that they're trying to pass or passing, many times it's coming from heretic Jews that started the whole thing. So this whole concept of Jewish unity under all costs, with everyone, with all Jews, is not only false, but it's damaging. And it's one of the things that Rav Elchanan Wasserman is telling us that has caused us more damage than anything else. Even in the world of Torah, where you would at least think, okay, so among the religious people, the religious organizations, there should be some unity. But it's not necessarily always like that. While not everybody is the same, there are some good ones and bad ones, and everywhere there's good apples and bad apples. There's good Chabad, there's bad Chabad, there's a good Hasidut, bad Hasidut, good Orthodox, bad Orthodox, there's good and bad in everything. But there is a common denominator that you see that's more, more significant. So you have this ideology by some people saying, listen, we love everyone, we accept everyone as they are. Yeah, that's very nice of you. And it looks really nice. Only problem is that you don't really mean it. You say you accept everyone, except the people that disagree with you. So if a rabbi says that you're supposed to teach people that they're not allowed to violate Shabbat, or all types of other things, you turn that rabbi into enemy number one. While the heretic atheist Jew, you give him a blessing, you give him a free meal, you give him everything. Why? Because you don't really care about his Judaism. You care about his pocket, care about everything else. So the reality is, Rabotai, is that Jewish unity does not come at any price. If it's following the Dat Torah, it has to have many, many exceptions. Now we all want shalom. But there's real shalom and there's fake shalom. And in order for us to know what we have or what we're looking to get, The only way to do that is by following Da'at Torah. In Parashat Pinchas, our Torah gives us that teaching. After Pinchas ben Elazar ben Aaron HaKohen kills Zimri and Cosby and saves Am Yisrael from destruction because they were following the abominations of the nations, Hashem blesses him with what's called Briti Shalom. And the Briti Shalom is, in essence, he let him have, the Shekhinah was resting on Pinchas at all times. Chachamim say that Pinchas never died, he became Eliyahu Navi. But if we look deeper into the words of the sages and into the Torah itself, the literal Torah, we see that when Hashem said Briti Shalom, He also taught us a law inside those words that most people could have read the Torah 50 times and never noticed it. Why? Because if you look at the word Briti, the two words Briti Shalom, the covenant of peace, you see that the word Shalom has the typical spelling, Shin Lamed Vav Mem Sofit, but the Vav, and this is in the book of Numbers, chapter 25, verse 12, you could see this in any Chumash, Tanakh. The Vav in the word Shalom it's cut off in the middle. This is called a Shalom Ktiyah. And the sages teach us that this Vav is cut off in the middle because Hashem is teaching us that sometimes there's no permission to have Shalom. As he said to the prophet Isaiah in chapter 48, verse 22, En Shalom, Amar Hashem LaReshaim. No peace, Hashem said to the wicked. And when it says wicked in the Torah, it's not referring to wicked goyim. It's referring to wicked Jews. And a wicked person is simply somebody that's not following the Torah. They don't necessarily need to be intrinsically evil, murderer, rapist. No. Simply, they don't want to keep Shabbat. They don't want to be honest in business. They don't want to pray to Hashem and put on tefillin every day. And HaKadosh Baruch Hu says, to that Jew that's wicked, there's no peace with him. Yeah, but what about peace with everybody? You didn't learn that from Hashem. What about ve'afta le'racha kamocha, that you love your brother like yourself? Yeah, your brother. If he's wicked, he's not your brother. If he drives on Shabbat, he's not your brother. If he doesn't believe in Hashem, he's not your brother. And that's one of the things, Rabotai, that is critical for us to know in our lives today, as we try to learn from our history in order not to repeat the mistakes of the past. Yes, there's certainly many laws to learn, many character traits to fix, an ideology that has to be the umbrella above it all. And part of all of those is to understand the value of Da'at Torah. Because without Da'at Torah, we don't know anything. We don't know what's right, we don't know what's left, and we end up using emotions and public opinion or popular opinion. And if that's what we end up doing, we end up making one mistake after another. That's what leads to our downfall. So the Wasserman is telling us, yes, we want peace. But peace in accordance to the Torah. Because peace in accordance to the Torah cannot be made with wicked people. Now, I'll tell you a story that certainly is this in practice. Our Beit Din in Israel, comprised of Rav Ephraim, Rav Shavit, Rav Didi, these are all extraordinary Talmidei Chachamim. No amount of compliments could be given to them for their scholarship, for their love of Am Yisrael, for their dedication. These are literally angels among men, just like the Chazon Ish said. And everything that they do is to try to bring good to the world, to publicize the Kadosh Baruch Hu's name, to bring Da'at Torah. Now, if you go to the average person out there and you tell them, listen, this couple has marriage problems. The wife wants a divorce. The husband doesn't want a divorce. What do? You say, oh, you got to make peace among them. If he still loves her, even though she's not happy, you got to try to make peace. Shlom bayit, under all costs, shlom bayit. Make peace. But like we said, sometimes no peace. So what happened? This couple came to the Beit Din. They married for many years. They have 6, 7 children. Baruch Hashem. And the woman is modest, covered, religious. The husband learns Torah, religious. But the wife has been very unhappy lately and has decided she wants a divorce. And they tell the Beit Din why. The husband doesn't want a divorce, says, even though I'm unhappy of how she has these new friends and she's out most of the time and I don't know where she's going, what she's doing, but still I want to work it. We have kids together, we have a life together, I want to make it work. And the wife saying she's unhappy, she wants to move on, she wants him to give her the house, and that's it, leave her alone. Now, well, your common opinion would tell you, listen, peace, convince her to give it a chance, give it this, give it that. Talmidei Chachamim, they don't just say what everybody else says. Some of the Chachamim had some doubts before they give the guidance, before they decide what to say. There were certain parts of the story that Rav Ephraim noticed that although this woman looks like she's religious and modest, certain things didn't add up. Certain things made it seem as if she's already living this other life, even though she's married and religious and with kids. She already moved on. Perhaps not only her eyes are on a different life, on a different man, perhaps there's more. And any time you have a safek, you discuss it with the Chachamim, and sometimes you have access to Chachamim that have left the world already for hundreds of years. And even though this is not how you paskin halacha, if there's a majority, still any time that there is a safek and there's also reasons to do it, there are certain things that become available to certain chachamim. And Rabbi Ephraim did what's called Goral Achida, opened a pasuk in the Torah and got the following verses. They relieved the impending disaster of my people by making light of it, saying, peace, peace. But there is no peace. Were they ashamed that they had committed an abomination? Here, Rabbi Ephraim already had another reason. The story she was saying and the husband was saying led him to doubt the truthfulness of her stories. open the pasuk, and the pasuk is saying, yes, peace, peace, by the husband, but there's no peace. She doesn't want peace. Perhaps she's shamed because she's already committed an abomination. After that, the Beit Din sent someone to follow, someone to investigate. And the woman that followed, as an expert, confirmed not only the doubts that Rabbi Ephraim had, but much worse. This so-called religious woman was literally pretending to be religious. She was already committing the worst of abominations. And at that point, it was forbidden to make peace with an adulterer. And a divorce was the only thing that was allowed to do at that point. You see, Rabotai Karim, the Mitzudot David says that when Jeremiah the prophet was rebuking Am Yisrael and telling them that if they continue going against Da'at Torah, if they continue going against Hashem, disaster will come. The false prophets came and said, no, peace, peace, everything's going to be fine, you have nothing to worry about, trust me, I know, I will love you, no matter what, everything's going to be okay, everybody kumbaya. They lied to the people in order to gain face, to gain position, to gain power, to gain money. And we all know the end, where the destruction really did come. Jeremiah's warnings, unfortunately, came to life. And all of those false prophets not only caused damage to the people by saying peace, peace, when there was no peace, but they caused the type of damage that's unrecoverable. This is what Rav Elchanan Wasserman is warning us about our days today. Shalom with the heretics is not really shalom. Sometimes war is what's needed for shalom. So instead of spending our energy befriending more heretic Jews that are going to be in political positions, perhaps we should spend more time investing into our Torah, into our Torah leaders, into our Torah scholars, and following what they say. Because that's the only thing that ever worked for us. And that's the only thing that ever will. And may it be His will that we succeed in doing so. Thank you for learning with me. Anyone that wants to contribute and help and become partners with us in all of the kiruv, the lectures, the USBs, the books, and all the things that we give out for free, can donate at be'ezatashem.org. Anyone that wants to take on the challenge of distributing some of these Asher Yatzar in your Jewish community and send us pictures for every 10 pictures, meaning 10 locations that you send me, that you gave out these boxes, we'll send you one of Nissim Zegen's English books as a gift. In so many words, if you give out 50 of them, 50 locations, you'll have the whole set that's worth several $100s for free. We'll pay for shipping, pay for everything. In so many words, we want to help you learn Torah, but we also want to help you help Am Yisrael learn Torah and do tshuva. And this, Bezat Hashem, will succeed. Thank you very much for learning with me, and Bezat Hashem, we'll learn again later this week. Kol tu b'cha b'atzlacha.